So, hello and welcome to the next episode of our Storer's Edge podcast series. I'm your host, Stuart Storrer, and today we have a truly inspiring guest who's been at the forefront of the clean energy revolution for over 3 decades. Ron Kamen, the founder and CEO of EarthKind Energy Consulting, is a visionary leader with a remarkable track record in sustainable energy adoption. From spearheading the $1 billion New York Sun program to advising governments, non-profits and businesses on impactful clean energy transformations. Ron's expertise is unparalleled. His company, EarthKind Energy, is dedicated to helping property owners reduce their carbon footprint and save money through innovative solutions in solar, electric vehicles, clean heating and cooling and microgrids. Ron's mission is to empower everyday people to make clean energy transitions, proving that a sustainable future is not just possible, but already in motion. We're excited to delve into his journey, his insights on policy and implementation, and the future of clean energy. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, Stuart. It's a pleasure.
So, Ron, you've got a fascinating background. I see you've got a master's in systems science, foundation in accounting and business. So how did that unique combination lead you to a 30-year plus career in clean energy?
Wow. So thank you so much for that origin story invite.
I hope I got that right.
Yeah, no, you did. Absolutely.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So I in high school here in the States, I was good at math. I liked symmetry, so the concepts of debits and credits, the kind of balance on a balance sheet,
Okay.
all appealed to me. I was good at math. I had an uncle convince me, hey, you could do well doing accounting and management. You should think about that. And it was an easy thing for me, and I wound up getting my degree in accounting and management at the State University of New York at Binghamton. Which was great. It's one of the SUNY schools. It's really, the school is pretty great. It's upstate New York. Anyway, in the process, my last year, I did an internship with an accountant, and I sat in this very dark office, counting the pennies and striving to find ways of using this little loophole in the law to save that person a chunk of cash. And at the end of it, I was like, this is great. Love the balance sheet, love the debits, love the credits, but it wasn't for me to sit in a dark room and just be a bean counter. I decided that I was much more of a people person and needed to be amongst doing other things. And at the same time, I had just taken a class in what was then the School of Advanced Technology in Binghamton as well, which was a graduate program that eventually became the Watson School of Engineering. And I was able to study systems, and everything's a system, when you think about it. And there's a whole body of science that studies the way that systems interact, the subsystems, the metasystems, how systems communicate. There's biological systems, psychological systems, economic systems, philosophical systems. Everything's a system. And how do you look at the world, and what do you see, and what happens? And the thing that was really fascinating to me is that you and I and all humans on this planet are composed of all these trillions of cells that have over billions of years evolved into the most complicated system that's around, And when you think about the kind of incredible data that's packed into a gene that is the blueprint for then you and me, it's like, wow, there's a lot in the universe that just goes way beyond anything that we, really can understand at this point. It's more, and that gene is more than all the supercomputers on the planet, pretty much, right? So it's like, wow, there's a lot more to the world than meets the eye. And I came out of it thinking that, at the end of this program, we all have to find our reason for being here and what floats our boat, what motivates us, what gets us excited, where we feel like we've accomplished something. And I decided that, for me, it was doing something to help people. I decided that that was really where I wanted to be. And I wound up falling into a job that was with a citizens empowerment movement. It was called Citizen Action at the time. And its goal was to help people take control of their lives and organize communities so that they could achieve some of the things that they'd really like to achieve achieve, which many times we're all frustrated by the realities around us and what to do. And this organization was founded on a very grassroots concept of first you go reach some people, you sit around a coffee table, you talk about what you can do, then you reach out to your neighbors, you have some goals, you have some targets, you have some folks that you want to reach, and you start building. And with that process, I helped build an organization that actually is still there today, which I'm kind of proud of. They evolved and took off, but it started out as just a few people around a dining room table talking about the issues of the time, and at that point it was energy. And the energy issues at that time were where the states were phasing in the cost of the nuclear power plants. For those of you who need some history, nuclear power was going to create energy too cheap to meter. It was going to be so widespread, so wonderful, so amazing, too cheap to meter. And
is that what they said?
That's the quote. You can go back and
Wow.
check it out. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And when I was younger, I believed in nuclear energy. I thought it was the energy that was going to take us to the stars. And then I worked at a nuclear power plant that was in construction, and saw that $300 million plant go to $1 billion, go to $2 billion. At $4.2 billion, I was then part of the effort to put a consumer cap on the cost. At $7 billion, it bankrupted the Long Island Lighting Company, which had to be taken over by the government and became the Long Island Power Authority, and almost bankrupted every other utility in the state. And realized that, the concept of nuclear is really great, but there's some really complicated pieces that are in there. The cost overruns, in addition to the 100,000 years or so of waste that you need to manage, which I don't know about you, but I don't have confidence that my government's going to be around for 100,000 years to manage the waste. There are some ways of minimizing that, and I think you could take a look at France and some other places that have done pretty well. You could take a look at some of the newer technologies. But really, as I looked at things, what I saw was there's this little nuclear reactor that we kind of take for granted that we little planet revolves around, and it's kind of amazing because it has more energy in it than we can ever conceive of. And actually, a lot of that energy is around us all the time. We live in a sea of energy, as I had one of my colleagues and associates point out to me. And it's in the air, it's in the sun, it's in the ground. It basically surrounds us. And if we can tap that energy, we can have a source of clean, renewable energy that is there forever. And when we get to the right structure and policies and programs and technologies, that can reduce the cost. So at that point, I decided, I became a community organizer. The issue was energy. I became an energy policy expert. Over time, I wound up testifying before regulatory and legislative bodies about the impacts. I helped organize thousands and tens of thousands of people to have an impact. We did have some substantial impact, but I realized in the process that energy and the environment were what was my reason for being, and that I needed to do what I could to help people save money with energy, move to clean energy sources, and provide a way for us to have a sustainable planet for our kids and grandkids. What a novel concept. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. We could talk more about whichever aspect of that, but that was how my undergraduate program in accounting and management gave me the tools that then in my graduate program of system science, I realized that there's a lot of things that need to change, that there are different pieces of society that you can look at structurally and systemically. And when you take a look at those systems, you can shift them a bit. And by shifting them, you can have a positive impact. And that helps people live their lives with the more affordable, sustainable, clean energy sources.
Thank you. So I understand that you were instrumental in the creation of the New York Sun program?
Well, here. So here's that piece of the story. So after college, I came out. I was a policy guy doing clean energy advocacy, and there was a lot of different policies, and we could talk about all of those at times, and the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think it's at some point worth a historical perspective, because there were a lot of things that definitely helped change markets in the States. Some good, some bad, some not so good. But one of the things that happened in the early part of the 2000s is I had left the wind industry, where I had done some work setting up programs for various different entities to get, we got the first 2 federal buildings in the country to go to 100% wind power with a renewable energy credit application, which was substantial. And then we had hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people signing up for various different wind energy programs. It was great, but for me, it was time to move on for a bunch of reasons. And I went into solar, and in particular at that point, my focus for my company was solar hot hot water, which is another interesting technology we could talk about sometimes, where, a lot of the world, before they start using fossil fuels to heat their water, they let the sun heat it up first. So you preheat it with solar, and then you can do whatever you want with it. But in Israel, 99% of the hot water is solar hot water. In China, the vast majority of their hot water is produced by the sun. And all around the world, you can see it happening. In the States, it had happened a little bit with certain policies in the late 70s and 80s, but then got destroyed by a change in policies later, and the technology had just evolved around the world, but hadn't happened here in the States. I was taking it on. I built some programs, built a whole focus, working to change the heating and cooling industries, particularly the hot water piece, into solar hot water. Spent 5 or 7 years doing that. But along the way, in the solar industry in New York at that point, there were solar electric, and there was a little bit of solar hot water, but really it was solar electric. But they were all mom and pop organizations. They were really small. And at that point, the biggest solar system you could build under the then current policies was 50,000 watts, 50 kW worth of solar. That was the largest commercial system that anybody was able to install legally in New York State. And through a process with a bunch of folks, they asked me to step into the leadership position because the organization was kind of languishing. It had been there for a bunch of years, had the same old guard that were pretty much doing the same old thing. And they weren't really addressing the fact that we needed to have a long-term sustainable financing program in place to really make the industry grow, and that we needed to reach out, not just have mom and pop small installers, but also have the larger installers, have the power purchase agreement types of folks like Solar City at the time, which had later become Tesla, Sun Edison, which had led the way with commercial solar, as well as the insurers and the financiers and all the large providers, et cetera, that were in that industry that needed to be brought into the fold. So that was my mission. And when I took the reins in about 2008 or 9 and ran the organization for about 4 years, and one of the first things we needed to do was to figure out, in New York, it was the case that we had a certain amount of funds for solar incentives, and then we'd run through those in about 3 or 4 months, and then we'd have to go back to the Public Service Commission, and everything would stop, and then we'd go back and we'd get some more funds, and it was boom and bust and boom and bust. And you really can't build a sustainable entity with, any sort of entity by doing that way. So we got the New York Sun program in place. We built a coalition of all the different providers, not just the solar folks, but all the people that wanted solar, plus the finances, plus the bankers, plus the environmental groups and everyone else. And in the process, we got a 10-year, $1 billion New York Sun program that gave the certainty and longevity to the funding so that people saw a glide path to get forward and to bring stuff forward into the future. And it was my little contribution to help make some significant, what I think is significant change. So
impressive stuff. So I guess as a recognized coalition builder, you've brought together, as you've just said, diverse stakeholders from government, industry, environmental organizations, and the like. So what are the key principles that you follow to build consensus and drive collaboration on these complex energy issues with that diverse group of stakeholders?
Great question. And I guess, some founding principles are: one, listen and respect each other's perspective. We're all come at it from a different point of view, different place, different evolution of our histories. And so, just respect that, and respect the fact that even though you may wind up having some disagreements with folks down the line, first, just respect the fact that we're all here, we're all trying to do our best, and what does that look like, and how do we reach common ground, or higher ground, I like to say, right? It's not, and you take a look at the universe, it's not left and right, up and down, black and white. There's the yin yang of it all, and inside every piece of it is the ability to reach across and find the higher ground that unites us all and that can have a positive impact. So that piece is there. That's primary to my way of being. And second of that is define your goals in a way that makes sense and go through a process. So from my perspective, it's okay, what are your goals? Who are the people in charge and power that can help you achieve those goals? So who are the people that can really have that influence? Who are the allies that you can bring in? It's not just us. It's like, who else is out there that we might be able to reach out to that would have a stake in this and become under the tent, as they say. What are the resources we have? What are the resources we need? What are the strategies we want to do? Sometimes it's confrontational. Other times it's much more collaborative. It could be regulatory. It could be legislative. What are the tactics then that you need to implement? And what's the timeline to pull it all together? So I go through, with any process, any campaign, a kind of process that I learned to my community organizing days, actually, that helps me figure out, okay, what do we want to do and how do we do it? And then the other piece of this, and I think this is really critical, is there was somebody wise who once said, you can do anything as long as you don't care who gets to claim the success. So pass it over, let other folks go on, let other folks take the credit. Doesn't matter. What really matters is getting it done. And also, one of the things that I'm a firm believer on is the transfer of power. So I was, unlike the previous Solar Industries Association president who had been there for over a decade, my view is that, we should have transitions every 3 or 4 years and keep some longevity, keep staff, keep folks in there that have history, but simultaneously keep new leadership coming in. And I still believe in that very firmly today. It's we have all different kinds of folks, and we need to keep bringing in, yes, us older people who have some experience and some knowledge to share, but simultaneously we need to bring in middle-aged folks, and then in particular young folks, help them, educate them, empower them so that they can take the leadership and bring things to the next level. So that's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, sounds great. I guess just another question, final question around policy. So, from your perspective as a chapter director of E2, Environmental Entrepreneurs, what are the most critical policy changes that you think are needed to accelerate the clean energy transition over in the US?
Great question. Thanks, Stuart. So, for those who don't
Solve all the
know,
world's problems.
for
Here it
those,
is, folks.
for those who don't know, E2.org, or the Environmental Entrepreneurs, is a 25-year-old nonprofit that came together, started actually in California, dealing with clean fuel standards out in California, when the auto industry was saying that the standards to increase efficiency in gasoline vehicles was going to destroy the industry, wipe out jobs, blah, 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 cost so much. And the reality was, folks kind of had a different idea about that, brought together people across the spectrum. I mean, everyone from the environmental organizations to various people in the industry, in the auto industry, through transportation experts, through some leading policy folks. And one of the folks that actually was around at the time and did some really good work was actually a Republican by the name of Schwarzenegger, for those of you who are familiar with film and his work. And he embraced the concept. And one of the strongest things I ever heard of as an argument for electric vehicles was, you don't believe in climate change, you don't believe in whatever, I got 2 rooms for you. On the left room, there's a gas vehicle. It's going to be purring away while you're in there. The whole time you sit inside and wait. On the right room is an electric vehicle. It's also going to be purring away, but which room you want to be in? And that's the state of the planet, and that I thought was a really powerful statement. So E2 started out in California, starting with clean fuel and transportation issues. It's since expanded. I'm one of about 10,000 members across the country, business leaders who understand that it's not the environment versus the economy. They go hand in hand. When you have a strong environment, you also have a strong economy if you do things right. And so these leaders and I'm a New York chapter director. I've been around for about 10 years or so now, working with the chapter of New York to help figure out, okay, what do we do? How do we do it? Where do we go? And so on a national level, we had been very strongly in favor of and supportive of, and we're very happy with the Inflation Reduction Act, which was trillions of dollars that was going to go into clean energy evolution, both on the manufacturing side and create jobs, as well as on the implementation side with tax credits and incentives, etc. This administration obviously has a substantially different point of view, and without getting too much into politics, all I could say is that they're, I believe, extremely misguided in terms of their focus and the fact that, yes, we need fossil fuels for some period of time going into the future because we need to keep the lights on and we need to keep everybody heated up during the the winter, and we need electricity all the time. But what they fail to realize is that across the world, people have found that, and even in this country, we found that solar and wind and energy storage winds up being the cheapest, least cost energy solution. It provides long-term viability. It provides clean energy that then does not contribute to the asthma rate, which in some parts of the country is as high as 25%, where kids are actually struggling to breathe because of the polluted air that's all around them. So it is a great source for economics, for jobs, for clean energy, for sustainability, for affordable energy that can then power our civilization. And yeah, lots of policy changes there. One of the things we're talking about actually in the Climate Week that's currently happening in New York City, which is an international event where folks focus in on different issues, is specifically, okay, well, given the realities of the federal government and the states, what can we do? And what we find, and what I found in New York, is that local municipalities, in New York, we're a homeroom state. And what that means is that if you live in a village or a town or a city in New York, you're able to do a lot of things and approve or disapprove a lot of different policies that cannot be just countermanded by the state or federal government. And that home rule leads to, on the positive side, a really lot of great innovative thinking and activities. On the negative side, it winds up being that if you're looking to do a large solar project or a large battery storage project, you have to get that local municipality to approve it. And that can be a very time-consuming, costly process where the amount of misinformation that's out there about these technologies can lead to very emotional and reactive opposition from folks who normally would be allies but just got the wrong information and think that this is going to destroy their communities, it's going to kill their kids, it's going to do all these wild, crazy, insane things that the internet helps publicize and reinforce. And the reality is that we have to get in front of that, and we have to help people understand that, look, this is actually good for you, it's good for your community, it saves you money, it helps with resiliency, you'll keep your power on when the lights are starting to go out because of extreme weather events. Whether you believe that those are increasing or not, they are happening. They always will happen. And so you need resiliency and you need affordability. And you can do it without polluting the air that your kids are breathing. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Save money, save energy, help the environment, and create a future for your kids. And oh, by the way, your kids can work in a really high-paying job and not have to go work at McDonald's or not be able to afford the community that you're living in. So lots of positive information that we need to figure out how to get out there. And that's why I want your AI power to come in and help us bring this message out there and spread the word, Stuart.
That's cool. Thank you, Ron. That's really interesting. So let's talk a little bit about your company, EarthKind Energy, and the business model. You've got a compelling zero cash outlay model for many of your projects. Could you explain how that model works and how it removes the financial barriers for businesses and organizations to adopt clean energy?
Sure. So when you take a look at any project, right, there's got to be some amount of capital outlay, right? Someone's got to lay out some capital to make things happen. Sometimes, there's a lot of easy, simple things you can do that are low-cost capital that can put in place, and we always look at those and work to implement those. But on a larger scale, if you're going to look to really substantially reduce your cost, your ongoing operations and maintenance costs, you have to come up with the capital up front. Coming up with that capital up front for some organizations is more difficult than others. For some companies, it's easier than others. There's always a trade-off in terms of do you invest in improving your energy efficiency and saving yourself money in the long term with operations and maintenance on your energy costs, or do you invest it in your product or invest it in your people or the other trade-off things that come from operating a business? So one of the things we found, and in particular it's a really effective tool for nonprofits as well as government entities that can't take advantage of tax incentives in particular, is this model of having a public-private partnership with an entity that can put up the capital. That entity then takes all the tax benefits associated with that capital investment, which in the States can be very substantial. Up until recently, and even currently, there's a 30% federal tax credit that could go up to as much as 50%, depending on the technology and the location. So somewhere between 30 and 50% just in a tax credit Plus, there's something called accelerated depreciation in the States, and that could be somewhere between 4 to 6 years or even as low as 1 year, depending upon your particular tax status and what you do and the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So that accelerated depreciation is at your tax rate, which for most of the customers that we work with, the for-profit customers, their tax rate is somewhere around 30 to 35 or 40% on that tax burden. So now you have a 30% tax credit, 30 to 40% accelerated depreciation. You got 70% of the project being funded just by the tax benefits of this capital investment. When you take a look at that, if you're a nonprofit or a government, you can't take advantage of that. If you have a public-private partnership with an entity, you can. That's great. If you're a smaller entity, or even if you're a larger entity, but you don't want to invest the capital, don't need the tax credits, don't want to take the tax credits, don't want to look at the accelerated depreciation, etc., you can again have these entities that will put up the capital, take the tax benefits, and then give you a lower cost stream of financing that can be as short as 6 years, can be as long as 25 years, but with no capital outlay on your part if you're a government, nonprofit, or any business that teams up with another company that's going to put up the capital. It's a zero cost upfront investment, and then you pay out over time, and that payment over time is usually substantially less than your current operation and maintenance cost to operate that energy system. So you wind up with positive cash flow from day one with zero cash outlay. Bunch of different models that are out there. Some of them are called power purchase agreements when you're actually generating the electricity with solar or some other sources of power. There's also energy savings performance contracts where you can do a similar model with energy efficiency, where you do have somebody else put up the capital, put in place all these energy efficiency measures, and then there's savings that result, and you wind up that your savings are more than what your financing pieces are. So third-party ownership has been a key driver for a lot of different aspects of investment in this country in particular, and yeah, it's one of the tools. It's not the only one. And if you're a for-profit entity that has a substantial profit and has a substantial tax burden, you might be better off putting up the capital yourself, or even borrowing the financing from a number of different entities that are out there. There's some lower cost financing options that are available from different government entities, etc. So if you take a look at the total return on investment, you have to look and evaluate, okay, if I come up with the capital, this is what it looks like. I'll get these benefits. This is what my cash flow looks like. This is what my ROI is. If I don't come up with the capital, this is how it is. No cash outlay. That's great, but less longer term savings and money in my pocket than if I came up with the capital myself and owned the asset. So yeah, take a look at both, and that's one of the things that we do. We represent customers in figuring it out for their particular situation, what's the best option for them.
That's great. So I noticed on looking at some of your case studies, there's some impressive results, such as there's a residential geothermal project with, I think it's the largest incentive in New York State history. What's the secret to maximizing financial incentives and achieving those sort of remarkable returns for clients?
Well, first, be early. So all these incentive programs, when they first come out, they have a small uptake. Most people don't know about them, and that's where we come in, and other folks like us come in and do that educational piece. And the reality is, over time, what happens is that in almost every incentive program, the incentives go down the longer you go out. So by the time you get through the early adopters, who are the first in, those are the folks who really get the maximum incentive benefit, because they've been incentivized to take that step, take that risk, make that happen. The longer you wait, the more that people are jumping onto the bandwagon, the less the incentives are. So if you're looking to do a particular technology, one, get in touch with somebody who understands the incentives that are out there, that are working to continue to understand how the process is evolving. On the positive side, if you're close to the beginning, you can usually realize a substantial amount of public benefit by taking advantage of those. And that's what we help our customers do, is take a look at all those incentives. What are they aiming to do? What are the incentives out there? What are the technology? Who are the providers? What are the incentives that we can take take benefit of? Is it cash incentives, which in that case it was, which was very great. But there was also a substantial tax benefit for that particular well-to-do individual who built a beautiful place on the water in Westchester County, New York, and wound up being very happy with the end results because they had a very clean, efficient heating system that was powered by the heat under our feet with geothermal heating and cooling. So, so be early. Be early. Make sure you get some good people on board. You know, we work with a lot of different architects and engineers, and they're great. I mean, you know, I have the highest respect for their ability to look at a particular situation, develop things that are just way beyond my detail-oriented abilities in terms of how they structure a building, how they build a building, the stages, all the pieces that go into it, making sure it's tight but has fresh outdoor air, etc. But what they don't specialize in and what we bring to the table is, hey, you know, what are the best technologies that are out there that are proven, and what are the incentives that we can take advantage of for that particular owner that's going to maximize their benefit, minimize their cost, and result in their greatest savings. So that's, you know, have a good consultant, have a good representative who understands that the government piece and is also helpful and critical to make this stuff happen.
Cool. I mean, I was doing my research, and you've touched on a lot of them today. You've got a long list of success stories. So I maybe just touch on another one that I came across. So you've had some great success in making Westchester County #1 in EV adoption in New York State. So what are the key lessons learned from that experience that can be applied to maybe other regions around the States?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So, Westchester County, for those who don't know, is the county just north of New York City. So it's close to New York City, but it's not New York City. It has its own decision-making structures that are in place. There's 43 municipalities, authorities having jurisdiction that you got to deal with in Westchester, which is a little bit crazy, but it is the reality of working home rule states in the country. About half of the states, I believe, are home rule states, which means that each one of those municipalities has the ability to determine their own policies and put in place programs that make sense. In Westchester County, it's a pretty well-to-do county. It also happens to have Consolidated Edison, which is the New York State utility that supplies millions of people in the New York City area. And New York City is all the boroughs and Manhattan. But Westchester has the same electric utility for 90% of its residents. So 1 million people living just north of New York City, mostly pretty, you take a look at the average income, it's really high compared to a lot of incomes across the country and elsewhere. So it's a pretty well-to-do county. It's also one where people are very environmentally concerned and supportive and are striving to do their best to figure things out. And when I took on that campaign a while back, we took a look at the demographics. And a lot of people drive in Westchester for one reason or another, and you can talk about a lot of people commuting to the city, but they go and drive to the train station to be able to commute to New York City, right? But you take a look, and the thing that was fascinating to me is actually this is true across most of the country and in various parts of the world. 98% of people in the United States drive less than 100 miles a day. Think about that. 98% of people on the average day drive less than 100. Some people drive more, but most of us, we're doing, the trip to the grocery store, we're dropping off the kids, we're going to work, we're going to the train station. It's not that far. It's not that bad. So even at the time when I first started that campaign in 2018, 19, thereabouts, electric vehicles were still getting over 100 miles to the charge, right? So that means for 98% of our time, we can have an electric vehicle that actually meets our needs, that takes us from where we want to go. We don't have to worry about the fact that the charging infrastructure wasn't built up yet to go long distance. It was just use it for your local travel. And also in Westchester, it's a kind of a bedroom community, again, for New York. So there's a lot of families, right? And in families, a lot of single-family residents and a lot of others who have 2 cars. So our pitch out in a very public way was, hey, you got 2 cars. Let one be an EV. Use it for all your local travel. It's half or two-thirds less the price for gas. There's only 20 moving parts instead of 2,000, so your maintenance expenses are dramatically less than an internal combustion engine, and you'll be doing something good for your kids. And one of the things that we did as well was, I'm a firm believer that building any sort of campaign that looks for societal change, you have to look at all the different pressure points. And to me, one of the things that I had a mentor point out to me a while back is when I could tell you something, you could say something to somebody, Stuart, and it has its effect, and hopefully we're logical enough and passionate enough, and we get the information across good enough that they'll take it to heart and think about it. When your kid comes home and says, "Mom, Dad, the environment is going to hell. What are we doing about it?" It means something else. And so getting to the kids and educating them and empowering them to bring home messages about how their families can save money, have a positive environmental impact, and reduce the pollution around them, and actually feel like they're doing something is really strong and powerful. So one of the things we also did is we ran an electric vehicle video contest for high school students. And we asked these students to come back with a 3-minute video that was fun, educational, and empowered people to make the transition. And it had some great results. It was so much fun. It was so great. We had such buy-in from so many different types of folks. And then they brought that message home to their parents. So it was a combined effort from the top down, with the municipalities leading the way with their policies and purchasing policies and buying EVs for their fleets, through reaching kids on the bottom level who then brought the message home that, hey, we got 2 cars. Let's just have one be an electric vehicle, and we can do all local travel in that. And if we go distance, okay, we'll take the other one to go long distance if that's your worry about charging. But otherwise, take it home, plug it into your garage. Overnight, you get all the power you need. You don't have to go to the gas station anymore. It's cheaper than getting gas, less maintenance than having a gas car. And let's do that, Mom and Dad. And seems like that had an impact. So we were pretty positive.
Yeah, great idea. So finally, what would be the one key message that you'd want our listeners to take away from our conversation today about the future of energy and our planet?
So first, recognize that in almost every situation, there is a clean energy technology that can be applied that's going to reduce your cost. And if you look at it the right way, it can be financed from various different alternative mechanisms that are out there, some of which are capital up front, some of which are third-party investments. So first, these technologies are here. They're today. They're current. They could save you money in the right approach and the right application. And yeah, you need to know what you're doing. So, get yourself somebody, not me, but somebody like me for sure, or someone on your team who understands that, energy is an interesting thing. People think of energy, they almost always think of electricity, and electricity is definitely key. It's going to be what powers our civilization. It is powering our civilization, but eventually that's going to translate into not just electricity, but also into our heating systems, or heating and cooling systems. But our cooling systems are powered by electricity, but our heating systems primarily are not. They're powered by fossil fuels currently, and there's a bunch of technologies out there to overcome that and deal with that. So it's electricity, it's heating and cooling, and then it's also transportation. And each of those aspects of energy cost us money. So take a look. One of the first things that we do with our clients is we sit down and we say, okay, where's your cost structure? Where is the pain that you're having for energy? What does it look like? And you find for a lot of these organizations, energy is their second largest cost compared to their labor force or some other costs. So it's a pretty substantial percentage of almost any entity's operating expenses. So where is it? Is it in electricity consumption? Is it in heating? Is it in transportation? Where are those costs? And then what technologies, what incentives, what providers are out there that we can tap into that can then help us figure out a way for us that makes the most sense to reduce our costs. So take a look at it holistically: electricity, heating, transportation, identify the technologies, know that those technologies could save you money, and figure out a way to make it happen.
Fantastic. So Ron, how can our listeners, because I'm sure this is going to happen following this podcast, how can they reach out to you or to your company, EarthKind Energy Consulting?
Great. So, for those, simple way is earthkindenergy.com on the internet. You can also reach me, Ron Kamen, Kamen, on LinkedIn. So various different ways of doing it through LinkedIn. Or you can even give us a call if you happen to be in the same time zone or close to it and would like to call us at some point at 845-266-3723. So internet, LinkedIn, or phone. Look forward to talking to you.
Fantastic. Thanks Ron, that really brings us to the end of another insightful episode. So, listeners, today we had the immense pleasure of speaking with Ron Kamen, the founder and CEO of EarthKind Energy Consulting. Ron, your passion for clean energy, your deep expertise in policy and implementation, and your commitment to empowering individuals and organisations to embrace sustainable solutions is truly inspiring. We've learned so much about the intricacies of the clean energy market, the power of strategic partnerships, and the tangible financial and environmental benefits that EarthKind Energy brings to its clients. So thank you so much for sharing your invaluable insights and for demonstrating how we can all contribute to a more sustainable future. To our listeners, we hope this conversation has illuminated the path towards cleaner energy and inspired you to explore the opportunities available. As Ron said, you can learn more about Ron and EarthKind Energy at earthkindenergy.com, the site. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we look forward to joining you again next time. Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Stuart.